Hey everybody, welcome to Vape Live from Voxpo. My name is Patrick Griffin, I'm the editor of Vapouround magazine, and I'm really pleased to be here. I hope you're having a good time. I'm very happy to be joined by Michael Landl, the director of the World Vapers Alliance. Hi Michael, can you hear me? Is everything good?
Everything fine, thank you for having me again. I think it's now the third time already. So great pleasure.
I think so. Basically, you guys literally do so much that it literally need to get you on to say what's been happening and what's going on. Certainly, for people who don't know, this discussion is sort of loosely titled Petitions, Protests and Press Releases, what it's like being the face of the World Vapers Alliance. Rather than me make a mess of it, just in a couple of sentences, can you explain what the World Vapers Alliance is all about and what you particularly do?
Yeah, sure. So we are a consumer organization and we represent vapers around the world. Basically, our membership structure is in two ways. So we have individual members, but also local partner organizations who themselves represent vapers. And basically, our common goals are to amplify and empower vapers to raise their voices and make them heard in policy discussions, media discussions. Obviously, you know probably best, we try to combat misinformation as well, which is mainly in the media sphere, but also to educate politicians about vaping and the benefits of vaping. And this combating misinformation, I think, is one of the overarching goals we have in everything we do, because I think that is one of our all main problems, that too many people don't know enough about vaping. And that's how we end up with all the bad regulations, which we see everywhere and which we try to fight and push back as well.
Yeah, and I mean, in my own job, I see that every day as well. I think what's quite sad, the level of misinformation seems to be getting more and more and more. And once you have this misinformation out there, it's really hard to correct the story. I mean, I think probably the best known example is the Avali crisis in America. Although that had nothing to do with vaping, everybody is still saying vaping is bad, and it's because of that. How do you actually combat it? What do you as an organization do?
I mean, it's basically one mind at a time. So it's hard work, as you said. Yeah, definitely. But I thought when we started, we didn't really see anybody in the policy sphere defending vaping, at least in the European Union, not. But oh, sorry, my coffee machine is going off. We basically said, okay, let's focus on several issues or at one issue at a time. So we see basically in every country and on all political levels battles about flavors. So one of our first activities was a campaign in the Netherlands where they set out to ban flavors. And we said, okay, we need to make sure that politicians hear from consumers. And most of the times, this is the main problem. Most politicians, I would say, are not dogmatic anti-vapers who hate vaping. They just don't know what it is and what it means for actual people. So we said, okay, let's have a campaign where people directly can engage with politicians. And make it as easy as possible for them. And I work personally in the German parliament, and I know that 5 emails to one politician can make a difference. And so we set out and tried to generate this awareness person by person, first of all with consumers, our own members, and then with the politicians as well. And then this campaign evolved more or less in a European-wide campaign. So that's why I always need to be careful. The first one was called Back Vaping, Beat Cancer. Because of the European Beating Cancer plan, we said, okay, vaping needs to be included as harm reduction method. And at the beginning, it looked like we had no chance to do that. We know how hostile the European Commission is. And basically they set out everything what every one of us hates. So flavor bans, increased taxes, extension of smoking bans to vaping, things like that. But we focused then on the European Parliament and did a similar strategy to empower vapers to directly engage with politicians. And obviously we as an organization engaged with them as well. And I think step by step, we see at least that some politicians start to rethink. Some of them start to publicly defend vaping and also wanting to have it included in a positive or in a harm reduction way in the plan. And I think we saw it a little bit in the draft version of the European Parliament. There, they only talked about tobacco in the traditional sense with further restrictions and kind of left it open for vaping what to do. So there's obviously those are small wins. We all want different regulations, but at least I think we can see that this hardcore, uninformed flavors are only for young people, those kind of things change. They change. Probably in the general media, you are the expert how to do that. I think that's still battle number one to get into mainstream media and get a fair say in the mainstream media.
But I think it's quite good because you did. I think the back vaping and the beat smoking campaign, getting people to engage with politicians is good for 2 reasons. It empowers people to realize that my story, my personal journey could make a difference. And when the politicians realize that the people who are voting for them, hey, they are pretty serious about this. But then you've taken it one step further, and you mentioned that you have some politicians coming on board. And I've noticed that you've got the Politicians Talk Vaping campaign. So the politicians who maybe they've changed their mind or they're willing to sort of to speak up. I think it's really powerful that you're doing that as well. And they're now having their say, because that can only, it can go around in a good positive circle now. So that can reinforce that the public's thinking that some politicians are on their side, and then other politicians go like, hey, my mate's talking about this, maybe I should do it as well. Was that the goal? Was that the strategy you did this?
You more or less summarized the basic idea of this campaign already perfectly. But it basically started because sometimes when I talk with our members, they are like, oh, nobody's on our side, nobody's here. And on the other side, the politicians say nobody cares about vaping. That's just a small topic, small issue. And then it was clear to me after we talked to some politicians who are very open about vaping that we need to change this perception from each other, because there are some politicians who are very open, some are very proactive, pro-vaping people. And so I just asked them if they would be willing to record a short statement about vaping and how they think it should be regulated and treated. And I think, as you said, it's a win-win situation for both sides. They get exposure, probably new people know about their stance on vaping, but on the other hand, I think it's also good for the community to see that there are sensible politicians as well, and people who are at least willing to look into the evidence. And that was the main goal. Let's see how long we can keep it up to find politicians. We actually, I mean, the cool thing for me about this is we are not restricted on any policy level, not on a region. So basically, every politician who wants to say something positive about vaping is super welcome. So if anybody knows anybody, please recommend it to me. I will reach out to everybody. Because as I said, it's a win-win situation for both parties, I would say.
And I think it's, I mean, politicians are obviously sort of influenced by things that are happening and what their electorate care about. So if they generally think people don't care too much about vaping, then they're not going to devote a lot of their time, or indeed any of their time, to it. Because, I mean, I'm sure you know, having sort of worked out of the German parliament, that politicians must have, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people trying to get them to, hey, this is my cause, do something for my cause. So they're not actively going out to find other causes. But organizations like yourselves, powered by the actual vaping public, can shape opinion and make people realize that, hey, this is an issue that we really need to take seriously.
And I would even add to that, because before I was working in a parliament, I always thought, like, why would I send an email to a politician? He doesn't care about it. But it's actually quite the opposite. So as you said, hundreds of people try to get appointments and things like that, and they are blocked. But if you get a genuine story about an issue or a personal experience with something, that somebody reads that in the politician's office, and even the staffer, he's not clicking on remove or whatever, or delete the email, because if it's such a genuine issue, he will show it to the politician. If he receives 5 vaping stories and how it changed the life of somebody in his team will look into the issue. So I think that really makes a difference, even though most people completely underestimate those kind of methods or those kind of ways to engage in policy discussions.
Yes, okay. That's good. Moving on to sort of something sort of similar to that, staying in Europe for the time being. When I came into the vaping industry and started editing this magazine, I think one of the first things that I had to get my head around was something called the TPD, the Tobacco Products Directive. And now I discover that I've got something new to get my head around, the Vaping Products Directive. The WVA's Vaping Products Directive. What's that campaign about?
Yes, I mean, it's basically, I thought it's always easy to criticize something, and we always complain about what especially the EU Commission puts out and their recommendations. And we thought, okay, let's do a proactive way as well. And we come up with just our part, so the vaping part, and we said, okay, let's create a vaping products directive with the input of the actual community, and then bring it later to the MEPs. Mm-hmm. So we created, it's basically a small survey with some texts about the several issues, like the flavor ban and those kind of things. And everybody can give input. We put that all together and create the World Vapers Alliance Vaping Product Directive, and then bring it to the actual MEPs. And it's basically one part of our general Vaping Beat Smoking campaign, which we probably will talk about in more detail anyway. But there, with this campaign, we basically incorporated the TPD process, the European Beating Cancer Plan, which will influence the TPD update as well, plus, which is also coming up, COP9. So basically, this year will be a very crucial year for public health and for vapers as well, and the future of vaping too. And that's why we said, okay, we need to try to do everything we can to raise awareness, but also to have some kind of proactive angle. And that's what we try to do with our own best case vaping regulation, I would say.
So I think basically, to sum up everything that we've said so far, I think the main point that we've covered is that, and if you are an individual vapor listening to this and you're unhappy with regulations or worried with regulations, you can actually play a really crucial part in changing them if you get your message across to the right people. And I would recommend that people just go to your site, worldvapersalliance.com, find out how that they can interact with politicians and get your stories heard, because it will make a difference. And if we don't fight now, if we don't speak up and act for what we know is right, we're going to have a very, very different vaping industry. We're going to have a world that is hostile to vaping. And when you think of the positive effect that can have on smokers, that's really scary, which is why we have to act, and we have to make people realize that their voices make a difference, and make a difference really well. Which again, that brings me on to the point. Why do you think the EU seems to be becoming more hardline towards vaping? The UK and the EU traditionally have been open to this, and now we've like basically sort of broken down the middle. The UK is going one way, and the EU is going another way. What went wrong, and why has this happened all of a sudden?
That's a good question. If I would have the perfect answer to that, probably then it would be easier to fight all those things. I mean, with the EU Commission, I think it was always the same case. They were always very hostile about vaping and similar products. In any case, probably on a national level or in general is, I think. I called it once, it's kind of this mission creep from many anti-tobacco organizations. So we see in a lot of countries the smoking rates declining very rapidly in the last few years. And what happens often then with some kind of governmental organizations or bureaucracies, they rarely say, oh, we won, so we don't need to exist anymore. So let's fire ourselves right now. That never happens. So I think one reason is that they have needed to find a new target, because the smoking rates are, especially in the UK, I mean, they are so low. And some of those organizations then were looking for a new target. And now it's not the war against the cigarette, but it's turned or morphed into a war against nicotine. And obviously then vaping is a target, but they lost our common goal out of sight, I would say, which is reduce smoking rates. So we were actually on a very good track with it. And the interesting thing to me is especially those countries who are very open and progressive about vaping had the biggest success in fighting smoking as well. So it's a very strange and non-logical approach for me, but I think this cynical explanation at least has some role in it, that you always see this kind of mission creep with organizations who are very successful in a lot of things.
I agree with you, but do you think that in promoting this now, let's say that nicotine is a bad thing, the way that certain organizations, maybe the World Health Organization is a good example, do you think it's a little bit dishonest or disingenuous in the way that they're doing things? Because the message of, hey, we have to protect a new generation of young people from being addicted to nicotine, that's really, really emotional. And that's something that your average person in the street can connect with that. Yeah, that's a good cause. I absolutely agree. But that hides the message, which you're getting across with your Back Vaping Beat Smoking campaign, that by backing vaping, 200 million lives can be saved. Is it be a more honest approach and something that's more in the public interest, the public health policy, to focus on that message?
It should be, right? I mean, it would be very clear, but I mean, yeah, with the WHO, I would even say it's not a little bit dishonest, it's very dishonest. I mean, with the recent report, you have seen it on vaping and nicotine delivery systems in general. I mean, Mr. Bloomberg had the forward and he was the main sponsor. So I think that says everything about how nuanced and how neutral such a report can be. So
like, hey, we need to do a report about vaping. Let's get the richest guy in the world who absolutely hates vaping. You can do that for us. All right, cool.
yeah.
That.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a huge donor there as well. So it could have been the other way around as well, that he said, hey, I want a report against vaping.
Yeah.
And then they created one. So I don't expect too much from also the upcoming COP9 meeting. I think there the more successful approach will be to put pressure on the national governments, which we try to do also with the campaign. So that they push back on the most outrageous recommendations, at least. And I think the UK will have a critical role in this, since it's the first time that they are not bound by the European position and can have their own. So I have high hopes for on the UK for that to push back, and hopefully they can create some alliance with some other more progressive countries, at least, I would say.
Yeah, it's such an amazing opportunity that we've got as a country now. Like you say, for the first time, we can go to a really hostile group of people and say, look, guys, we just want to present some evidence-backed assertions that you might have got this wrong and we've got it right, and this is the data we've got, and it does save lives. I just wonder whether we are actually going to take that opportunity to do that, or is it rather that we're just going to send a number of bureaucrats that we normally do, and they have their like red lines, and it's like, well, that's not too bad, that's not too bad, okay, we can go with that, rather than be more like in your face and go, you've got to change this. I don't know. I just don't know.
And I mean, that's the whole problem with COP9, and we probably won't know because it's so intransparent. We don't really know what is discussed, how it is discussed, who says what, and that already shows that this huge lack of transparency is a huge problem there. But I hope the national governments, at least at some point, when they see there is resistance, that they can't go through with that anymore, and that they need to come out more into the public and actually tell their own voters what they did there and what policies they are and where they push back, things like that. We will see.
So let's try and make it a little bit more positive then. If you can talk a little bit more about the Back Vaping Beat Smoking campaign and this possibility that decisions that politicians could make could lead to many millions of lives being saved.
Yes.
Important, and what is it that you guys are doing, and how can people watching this help?
So basically, we launched the Back Vaping Beat Smoking campaign 2 weeks ago. And the general goal is to shape international public health policies in that way that we can save those 200 million lives. And this number, we calculated on the basis of the UK's vaping rates, and then we compared it with other countries and their smoking rates and their vaping rates, and more or less calculated how many people would have the potential to switch if other countries would follow the UK's approach. And that is for 61 countries, 200 million people. In the European Union, it's 19 million people. So that's quite a lot. And that means with the two main regulatory milestones, which are coming up with the TPD and COP9, if politicians get it right, they can save 200 million lives. I mean, that is a very powerful message, and I think every politician should listen to that and think about it. And we try to generate awareness for this fact. And what we will do is we start next week, Friday 20th in Barcelona, with a Vape bus, where this bus will drive around Europe, and the first stop will be in Barcelona next week. And there we will engage with the vaping community, but also with the general public, and try to, as I said at the beginning, try to make it as easy as possible for the specific consumer and vapor to engage in policy discussions, but also, which I'm looking forward to, have some fun there. So we will set up the bus, and then there will be some Vapers journey with photo opportunities, obviously the contacting politicians part, but also some games and merchandise, stuff like that. So for me personally, it's super exciting because after COVID, it's the first time that I can actually engage with the people. And from Barcelona, we will take basically a route through Europe. The first or the next stops will be Milan, Lyon, Munich. And then we will keep going. And basically everything will end then in Brussels and Geneva, where we bring all those stories and messages which we get from our members and consumers to the European politicians and to the WHO headquarters.
So people who come on that bus, can they come on, tell their stories, have it recorded, and you send those to the politicians? Is that how it works?
Exactly, yes. I mean, there will be many different ways how to write or record a message. So we will have basically both. Either they can send right on the spot emails to their MEP from the specific country. They can write an open letter to politicians in general. They can record a video statement, take pictures with the "Back Vaping, Beat Smoking" slogan and hashtag, post their own stuff there. So many different things, whatever some person wants to do. Not everybody wants to record a video, so they can send an email, different kind of things. But that's just this one policy part. It will also be a fun part there with games and to make it easier and to engage with each other and generate some positive energy, I would say.
It's blue and bright pink as well, so you can't really miss it. It's got world.
Exactly. I mean, we will tomorrow or today even publish the concrete info. So for the first few stops, the dates and where we will be. And then basically everybody can follow the bus online. We will have an interactive map there and everything is there. Unfortunately, thanks to COVID, it's always a little bit in brackets if we can do it. So we will announce it in 1 month steps, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, regulations are changing sometimes on a daily basis. So.
Exactly.
You coming to the UK?
We are coming to London. Yes.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Yeah. You're based in London, right?
I'm based sort of outside. I'm based in the Midlands, but if you come into the UK and I can get down there, I'll definitely do that.
For sure.
And where can people get the schedule?
That's backvapingbeatsmoking.com, but it will be published tomorrow.
From tomorrow, okay, excellent stuff. So tomorrow, check it out.
So that's preview info.
Okay, preview info. And things are subject to change because of COVID. It's out of our control, out of Michael's control, out of everyone's control. But yeah, that sounds really good. Do you like ice cream?
If it's with flavors, then I love it.
I really like ice cream, but you did a campaign recently that really caught my attention. You managed to get people like me that really like ice cream to taste it and go like, "Oh, that's absolutely horrible. I don't want to taste that again." And how did that happen? Why? Why did you hate people off ice cream, Michael? What's going on? I thought you were a nice guy.
Why do we hate people?
Yeah.
No, that was basically one part of the campaign in Netherlands, and that was the day where they decided on the flavor ban in the parliament. And so we said, okay, let's go in front of parliament and hand out tasteless or flavorless ice cream to people and see how they react. And obviously, nobody really enjoyed it. Everybody got later one with flavors, but it was basically to illustrate that flavors matter, also for adults. And that's why we did that and wanted to show with that flavors also matter when we talk about vaping, and especially for adults. And I think it was a super fun thing. And some politicians even took it and were a little bit confused what it is, but then caught their interest. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, he only waved at us, but...
Yeah, and then did what they wanted to do anyway, I guess. But
yeah,
that's quite good. And do you think of a lot of these ideas? Do you like, I know what would work? This would
yeah, no. We never know what works, because basically everything we try is the first time we do it. But it mainly was because of the COVID situation last year. I mean, I'm now basically for 1 year at the World Vapers Alliance. And when I started, it looked like, oh, COVID is over last summer. Now we can organize conferences, meet people, stuff like that. Obviously, that didn't happen. And we got back our restrictions and no traveling. So we had to come up with more creative ideas and things what to do when we actually cannot meet people. So one of the things was this cardboard protest in Brussels, where we basically cut out my face and faces from other vapers, put it on a cardboard, on a fake body, and put it up in front of the European Parliament to have a virtual but non-virtual protest. Or in the Netherlands, we did a light show where we projected messages on houses and things like that. So that was more or less only because of COVID. We couldn't do anything else. And as we already talked, it's hard to get media attention. So we need to find some creative and eye-catching things to do. And the ice cream was then the last thing when the COVID restrictions were lifted a little bit. We couldn't do a protest or something like that. So we said, okay, then let's just hand out ice cream. That should be fine.
And is it true now that there are a number of cardboard cutouts with your face on them being traded for like €1,000 on eBay?
I'm not sure if they ended up there. I'm not sure. I mean, part of the Back Vaping Beat Smoking campaign, we also created NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So basically,
about that yesterday.
Yeah, and maybe we should also use the cardboards for this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I hardly heard that expression. Someone used it twice in 2 days. Right, I've got a memory test for you. What's your memory like?
Not good, probably.
Okay.
For what?
Okay, fair enough. I think you'll get this one. We'll see. Do you remember what you were doing on Sunday, the 30th of May this year?
Oh yeah, that I remember for sure. Yeah.
We've had a question that came in, and it was actually on my list anyway. We've got a list of things on that. We had a question come in saying, "Can you give us an update on how successful World Vape Day went?" Obviously, I listened to you guys on that. I think you had some technical problems, which you're going to have with sort of things in different sort of countries and going ahead. But for me, it didn't detract from that. I thought it was a really brilliant presentation. It was a huge marathon event for you when you were talking.
Yeah, for me, I will always remember it because it was the first time for me to be 4 hours in front of a camera.
Yes.
Which is a new experience. And yes, with the technical issues, it was also a new experience, because for me, in front of the camera, if something didn't work for 5 seconds, I thought, oh my God, it's so bad, it's horrible. And when I rewatched some parts of it, I was like, oh, you didn't really see it, so it was not that big of a deal. Yeah. But it was always because we had a lot of people coming in via Zoom. We were there live, and then you had echo, stuff like that sometimes. But when I rewatched parts of it, I thought like, oh, it was actually not that bad. So I shouldn't be too critical with the tech team and stuff like that.
It was very good, and I think you had a lot of really interesting speakers on it. We got a lot of great content for our magazine on the back of that. I think from World Vape Day, that was the first time that I heard Maria Papanoy that you had on there. I thought she was so brilliant. Yeah. I'm going to be speaking to her later on today.
Yeah, I've seen it on the program, and I was very happy when I saw it. And they are a partner organization of us as well. So basically, we had a general introduction about the World Vapers Alliance, about our campaigns, what we do. And then we had 3 panels, and one panel was a panel for our partner organizations where their presidents were calling in and just gave an update of their countries. And yeah, Maria is from Canada, and she is great. I love her, and I love her work. What they do, it's amazing. It's always the highlights of every show.
Looking forward to speaking to her. I've just noticed we've been talking for ages, and we've got lots of questions that have come in. So let's just see what they are like. We've probably done this one. What is the latest on vaping flavor bans across the EU, US, UK, and other locations across the globe? Wow, how long do you think we've got? Tell us everything.
I mean, generally, unfortunately, the flavor bans are an issue everywhere. That is always, as soon as it comes to vaping regulation, the flavor ban is very, very near, or at least the discussion about flavor bans is near. As we already talked a little bit, at least on the EU level, the EU Commission would love to have it. They opened the door for it, even though the language is quite unclear, but for me, it looks like they want the flavor ban. Luckily, the European Parliament, they push back a little bit on it, and we will see. Problem is, the Netherlands already have it. We fought very, very hard to get rid of this proposal, and we could delay it for a while. And back then, there was even the highest participated health-related consultation for a specific law, and 98% of people were against it. But the government decided to still push it through. I mean, I would then ask why even have a consultation, but okay. And so this flavor bans, I think this is the main battle which we will face the next half year as well when it comes to COP9 and TPD, because that also has a lot to do with this misinformation. Because as you said before, it's easy for somebody who wants to ban them to explain, oh, it's just because of the kids. And then the discussion ends most of the time if there is no vapor or no pro-vaping politician in the room, because for me that's the typical straw man argument. I mean, flavors are already forbidden for underage kids. They are forbidden. So let's think about how to make sure that they don't get it, but without hurting all the adult vapers.
US, when there have been studies about flavor bans, studies about young people and vaping, flavors aren't even in the top reasons why they try it. So their argument is false anyway. It's ridiculous. But I'm talking about that forever.
Yeah, and San Francisco already showed that the flavor bans also don't help to prevent kids from smoking or vaping, because the smoking rates went up after the flavor ban. I mean, the worst outcome you can imagine.
Exactly, completely the worst outcome.
But still, it crops up everywhere, and that's a little bit of a mystery for me. But probably my only explanation is because it's the easy argument for the opponents. Oh, it's about the kids. Think about the kids, and that's it. Then you're always in the defense, but it should be the other way around, because those people who ban flavors, they are pushing vapors back to smoking.
And that's the really serious point.
Yeah.
We've got another question. I can answer this one. Where can I get more information about the World Vapers Alliance? That's easy. You get it from the World Vapers Alliance, worldvapersalliance.com, and then follow the links to all of your socials and stuff, and follow Michael on social media, on Twitter and social media as well. So that was an easy one. So we can get rid of that one. Question, you are now gone. What's this? I've seen the WVA's recent ice cream and graffiti protests in Europe. How do you come up with such unique campaign ideas? I've done that one, and that's because Michael and the team were just awesome. They're just little idea factories, and they sit in there all the time, coming up with new stuff. So that's that one done, sorted out. And
in reality, it's more like, let's have a drink and talk about stupid stuff, and then you come up with something. It's pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. Some of the best ideas happen when you've had maybe more than one drink. Or you're drunk enough that you really don't want to drive afterwards because it's bad. The cardboard cutout, we've done that as well. The cardboard cutout protest you ran in Europe was a brilliant way to overcome COVID restrictions and still get the word out about vaping. What sort of response did you see from that? I think you had quite a good response from that, did you not?
Yes, especially we had two. We had one in Brussels and one in Berlin. And especially the one in Brussels was very good because that back then it was the first time I think that anybody did something like that. And even the few pro-vaping MEPs, they saw it and they contacted us and said, that was great. And obviously our main goal was to actually create awareness and get into media, and this goal we achieved. How much it helped with the general policy discussions, I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll see. We've got a lot of questions. Let's try and do this as a really sort of quick fire session now because we're running. I can't believe how many questions we've got. People want to ask you stuff. Michael, it says, in your opinion, what do you feel is the biggest stumbling block for smokers converting to vaping?
That's not so easy to say, but probably the lack of information as well, or the misinformation, because many smokers now think vaping is as harmful or more harmful. So I think if it would be easier to communicate the actual risks of the products, it would be easier for smokers to switch. And also I think in practice, many start with too low nicotine.
Right, okay. And then we've got someone asking, Michael, what would you say has been the biggest success for the World Vaping Alliance so far? And this is such an easy question. Can I have a World Vapers Alliance t-shirt?
then this person needs to come to one of the bus stops. Then there we will have merchandise as well. Biggest success, I mean, probably is actually the Alliance itself, because we have now 14,000 members after 1.5 years, more or less, and 23 partner organizations. And I would also say the consultation in the Netherlands, where 98% of people were against the flavor ban. Obviously, there was also an alliance with some local organizations, but that showed that the vaping community can activate people and is highly active. Yeah.
Okay, good. The question for me now, you can't have all the questions yourself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Patrick,
then I can do this.
You can take a little break. Patrick, how important is the work the World Vapers Alliance does? Oh, it's really important. Generally very, 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 very important. Do you think it is critical that the rest of the vaping environment gets involved in their work? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Otherwise, Michael wouldn't be on the show. If they weren't doing a good job, why would he be here? Hey? That's simple. Yeah, a very good job.
But same applies to you. Same applies to you. Your work is also critical for us. So
I think everybody in this industry, that when we're trying to fight misinformation, to basically save lives, it's important work, and we really enjoy the work that we do. In Michael's opinion, are politicians and policymakers shifting their mindset towards vaping? I think you're probably going to say some of them are, and more of them will with education.
Exactly. It's super easy, actually.
Okay, that's cool. Has anything changed in Germany in regard to vaping since you last appeared on the Vape Live?
I'm not sure if the tax increase was already through Parliament back then, but they increased the taxes on vaping products ridiculously high. Which is it's even higher than it would be then. So it's from in 2 years on, I think, and it will be the highest tax in the European Union, higher than the one which Italy had and had to get rid of again, because obviously black markets soared and people just bought from abroad. But now Germany tries to do that, and they're calculating with ridiculous amounts of tax increases, tax incomes for the states, and we probably will see very soon that won't happen, because unfortunately they are pushing people on the black market, or to just other restrictions. I think that was the only thing that changed in Germany.
Okay. Yeah.
If the person speaks German, I would recommend to follow Mrs. Ludwig. She's the spokesperson for all drug-related issues, and she is horrible. She is so horrible that it is already funny again. So follow her on Twitter.
Okay, that's fine.
And reply to her tweets.
That's good. We've got a question that's not a question, and it even starts saying it's not a question. So the question that's not a question says not a question, but I just wanted to thank Michael for his dedication to vaping advocacy work. That's not a question, but it's a nice thing to say, so we'll take that.
Thank you.
Take that. What else do we have? What more can the vaping community do to alter perceptions around vaping? I think we've really covered that in this thing. So just basically everything that we've discussed here, we'll answer that one.
Get active.
You recently, we've done that one. What's next for the World Vapers Alliance?
Yeah, as I said, for us, the Back Vaping Beat Smoking tour starts. So I will be on the road quite a lot, actually, in fall. So we will be, I mean, I won't do every city, but quite a few of them. And we will be traveling with the bus basically till COP9, so November, with a short break in the middle, and try to visit as many people as possible. So I'm really looking forward to that, and that will mainly occupy all my energy. And because I said with COP9 and TPD coming up, I think that will be a very crucial half a year for the whole vaping community. And I hope a lot of people on the road and on our way will support us, but support our general mission to save lives.
Yeah, I absolutely hope so. We've got a lot more questions, but we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for sending in all of your questions and for the nice things that you said. I really hope that you go out now into your own communities and basically sort of share this information. Organizations such as Michael's can only do so much, but the message can be amplified by you telling your vaping story and getting your friends to tell their vaping stories. And let's really make an impact, because when there are so many millions of lives that can be saved if politicians make the right decisions, the converse to that is, sadly, millions of people are going to die if politicians make the wrong decisions. And if you're watching this now and you can play some part in changing that story, then that's a really good thing that you've done in your life. That's what I would say. How would you sum up in a sentence or two or one?
That was a perfect sentence, but I would say basically get active. And that means for everybody something differently, obviously. But in what way? Any activation is helpful for anybody. If it's becoming a member of a consumer organization, hopefully from WVA as well, it's helpful. Sending one email is already helpful, or being informed and being engaged in Twitter discussions. Everything. There are so many people who read what other people say. So every form of activism, I think, is helpful. And if we can play a small part in bringing that activism together and direct it in the right directions, then I think we can push back on the most outrageous policy recommendations which are coming ahead.
Brilliant stuff. We are completely out of time. Michael, once again, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure talking to you. For everyone watching this, I hope you enjoy the rest of Vox. For everyone who's watching this that is not live, there's been some great stuff. So Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the program, everyone.
Thank you very much. Cheers.